Hello, everybody. Pastor Randy here. Welcome to Making It Simple. Ready to kick off a brand new week. Hope you're coming off of a blessed weekend wherever you may be around this world. It is a joy, an honor, and a privilege to be with you today as we continue our conversation through the book of John and about the relevant issues of life and how these scriptures, how these biblical passages, how they're still applicable right now, why they still matter, how they make our life better. One of the things that we like to do here at Making It Simple is indeed just that. Break it down and talk about it from the heart. Look about it through relevant life issues and see exactly how does it apply, how does it still line up in 2021 and years beyond. When we left off on Friday, I wanted to examine the concept as it was shown here of the difference between saying something and doing something. Now, of course, we're all familiar with that. Many people throughout life, maybe even including ourselves, we've said something and done the opposite. We've said something in a promise or whatever the case and not fulfilled that. Again, whether intentional or not, that's not the mode of the conversation that I want to go here. What Jesus was referring to when he talked to the Pharisees in this manner was, you are making a public claim through your office, through your position, through your lineage, your heritage, and everything else of where your assignment is come from, where your justification is coming from, and it doesn't line up. It doesn't work because the claim that you're making of being through the line of Abraham, okay, yes, that's valid in the sense of a bloodline lineage. However, you don't act anything like him. The things that you're doing, the things you're pursuing, the things that you are saying, writing, acting upon, and whatever the case, have nothing to do with Abraham and have nothing to do with God whatsoever. We could make that same argument amongst some of the things that we're seeing going on right now in the world. Many in different parts of this world, they claim this same lineage through the seed of Abraham, through his son Ishmael. Yet still, none of the horrifying actions line up with anything that Abraham did, certainly don't line up with anything that God ever said, but yet still the claim is still made. On the other hand, many claim, I love Jesus. But nothing about their actions ever show that, ever, by word or deed. So I want us to kind of continue to piggyback off that concept just a little bit and maybe just take it up another notch or two in the idea of being challenged. Now, most don't like that. I'm not a real big fan of it, because most of the time the challenge sometimes is built out of just wanting to be aggravating or just wanting to be focusing on the difference of opinion. But see, this is not just mere opinion that we're dealing with here. Jesus is actually calling out a valid point. Now, one of the things that we again see how this is applicable to today, to certainly many even in leadership, is the fact that when challenged with the truth, not just a mere challenge, but when challenged with the truth, they get really defensive. Typically, the one that gets that upset and that defensive about things, you've hit a nerve because they know that you know, but they will not admit it. Much like what we've talked about before, pride goes before destruction. And the group that we're dealing with here was extremely prideful because they were never going to admit that they were wrong, even though they knew they were. That's what made them dig their heels in the most. They just weren't going to admit it. They would rather die, as Jesus had said to them, die in their sin of pridefulness and arrogance. They would rather die in that than admit they were wrong, because admitting they were wrong meant they needed to change, and they weren't going to admit that. That still exists right now. And in fact, for some people, it's a serious problem. Nobody likes to be wrong. And certainly nobody likes to be embarrassed or exposed or whatever. But sometimes it's not really the intent of the one making the challenge or the one making the claim. Now, for some, obviously, they get some joy out of seeing people squirm or be, exposed or whatever. But that's not really the focus of my point. The one, though, who receives the challenge, our response to that, it really tells a lot about our heart. See, humbleness allows for us to receive the challenge or the rebuke, deal with whatever the situation may or may not be. And sometimes it's painful, sometimes it's exposed, sometimes it's embarrassing, whatever. And then go on and be better because of it. In other words, not having to live in that lie anymore, not having to carry that around anymore because it wasn't true and it wasn't beneficial. And the longer that was carried, the heavier it got, and it just wasn't productive. Here the Lord is trying to get them to understand, guys, listen, you are in a position to honestly be an asset and a help to people, a true guide in spiritual manners and the things of God. And you're very derelict in your duties. And you're trying to justify your actions by claiming your heritage. Well, I can tell you that has nothing to do with anything, because it's your actions that people see. They hear your words, but it's your action that takes those words and puts them right in the trash, because they don't really have any meaning. They have no substance because you aren't real. And boy, oh boy, did they not like that. So I want us to look at that just a little bit today through these scriptures. Remember, Jesus told them when they said, well, Abraham is our father. This was in verse 39. And it said they answered and they said to him, and he said unto them, if. Now, if oftentimes is one of the key words in the entirety of Scripture. Because when if precedes a statement, that presents the possibility of a choice. In fact, it presents the moment of choice. If you do this, or if this were true, or if this or if that, it just changes the entire dynamic of the statement. So he says here, if you were Abraham's children, in this particular sense, what he's speaking of here is if you were honestly wanting anyone to believe that your claim of lineage and heritage is true, then he said you would do the works of Abraham. When we go back and study the life of Abraham, we understand where Jesus is coming from. He's talking about obedience in totality to the commands of God. God said, go, Abraham went. God said, sacrifice your son. Abraham, it tells us, got up the next morning, put the gear on the mule or the donkey or whatever the case, grabbed Isaac, and up the mountain they went. I'm sure with a heavy heart, as any parent would feel, but at the same time, we have no recording of a rebuttal. But God, no. It just says he went and went. He got up and he went. His one act of disobedience obviously created a lot of problems that still exist today when he didn't trust God. And in particular, his wife did not trust God, that at their advanced age they could have a child. But that's another story for another day. Jesus says, if you were truly Abraham's children, you'd act like him. Again, speaking much deeper than just the bloodline heritage. He's speaking of the obedience to the commands of God, because they weren't doing that. And so we see in verse 40 today And this is where he picks up on not even just a rebuke, but a challenge, an exposure, a mirror moment. That's kind of our saying here at Making It Simple. A mirror moment. When you look in the mirror, that's what's there. You know, if I look in the mirror this morning, I have on a blue shirt and a gray hat, and it's this guy's mug that's been looking back at me for a long time. That's who's there. That's what's there. This is a mirror moment. He says, coming out of the statement, if you were Abraham's, you would do his work. He says, but now, in this moment, in other words, you seek to kill me. Why is that important? Because earlier they had also made claim, we're just doers of the law that that God gave Moses. And so we're carrying that out. We're again, the justification of their behavior. But he's like, no, because your stringent adherence to the law, that includes thou shalt not kill. Of course, that there's all different types of deviations of what that means, but in particular here, that obviously that meant one that is innocent, because it tells us in the book of Proverbs that God hates the shedding of innocent blood. And so here he says, you claim to be of Abraham, yet still your desire, your heart wants to kill me. That's what's dwelling within the confines of your heart. You want to not just remove me from town, not just send me packing, not give me a bus ticket or a camel train or what you want. You don't want me just gone. You want to kill me, murder me. And then he follows it up with why. And this is impactful, and this is why it's still relevant right now. He says, you seek to kill me, a man who has told you the truth. Wow. A man who has told you the truth. He said, which I heard from God, and that did not Abraham. What was he saying here? I told you the truth. And your response to that, well, let's kill that guy. We don't want to hear that. Friends, that's still relevant right now. It's extremely relevant right now. Because we're in a time, not only as history repeats itself, but we're in a time of great oppression when it comes to the truth. You see, and again, this is not to be conspiratorial. This is not to be political or anything else. This is to be eyes wide open. This is to be someone who's in constant prayer for wisdom. Because the book of James says, if you don't have wisdom, ask for it. I do that literally every single day. What we're seeing right now in the midst of all the chaos and confusion that is going on in the world from every corner, but in particular as it deals with leadership, and this has got nothing to do with party affiliation. This has to do with, I don't want to hear the truth, because the truth exposes my motives. The truth exposes my heart. And this is what was going on then. See, Jesus said, I just told you the truth. And you want to kill me. Many today who are desiring to share the truth lose their life. Accidents, reported suicides, all these different things. Friends, we need to understand the enemy hates the truth with a deep, deep-rooted hatred. because it goes back to the origin of the enemy. It goes back to the concept and understanding of this one that we call Satan, Lucifer, the devil, whatever the case. The prophet says, "O Lucifer, how you have fallen." You see, Lucifer was and is a created being. And when pride got in, and his determination was, well, I want to be God. In fact, I want to be bigger than God. I want to go up one level higher. Well, that's not possible because you're dealing with the Creator. And so pride got into the way, and pride continued to grow and swell, and the ego got in there, and all the different stuff. In other words, his heart became impenetrable, and the truth became his enemy. Because the truth that was exposed to him was, you're not right. That's not okay. You can't be bigger than God. You can't be in charge. Be content and happy with the role that you have and be a blessing and be a help. Nope, I want it my way or no way. I'm going to have it my way or bust. Here's where we are. We've returned to that same mindset, that same spirit. And the other side that goes with that makes it dangerous is, I don't care who it hurts. I don't care how many people get hurt. I don't care what blows up. I don't care what goes down. I don't care what happens, as long as I can do what I want and at least have some idea or some feeling or some semblance of the fact that I got my way. We've heard all different types of analogies through these lessons that I've given in that same mindset. But the problem is along the way is it's not a victimless deal. It's not a situation of where there's just oh, well, that's just oh so and so. No. People get hurt and lives get destroyed sometimes along the way because of this refusal to hear the truth. Many people today, regardless of their position or how high or low they are on the ladder, when confronted with the truth, they get very defensive and they get very upset and they don't like it because it shows who they really are. It shows their heart. And if they're not willing to be humbled, the Bible says, if you will humble yourself, God will exalt you. But if you exalt yourself, in other words, the arrogance and pride says, nope, not listening to you, it's my way or no way, the Bible says you will be humbled. In other words, okay, if you want to play hard, it's going to be really hard. And so Jesus here says, I told you the truth. And the result of that is your heart is exposed. The wickedness that dwells with there. And your desire is to remove me, to kill me, in order to stop the truth. You see how that applies to right now? Again, we're not talking about conspiracies and all the different things that gets claimed about certain matters that are true, but it doesn't fit the narrative. So we got to stop that. And we got to stop the ones that proclaim the truth. It's very important that we understand this, especially from a spiritual realm. Because you see, here is the truth. And I love this the other day. I saw this statement, and it's been around several places. So I am not claiming originality here because I didn't say it. But there was a sign that said, normal is not coming back, but Jesus is. You see, Jesus gave the truth then and now. This word is still relevant right now as much as it was the day that God commissioned for it to be written, for it to be his word as given by Jesus himself, the word. And so here he says, I'm just trying to help you, really, by giving you the truth, because you can be a better leader. You can be a better advisor, a better guide, a better, everything. Just live a better life when you live in that. But you don't want that. because you want it your way. You've determined your way is better, your way is higher, your way is smarter, whatever the case. And so, in order to rebut that, in order to eliminate that, you just want to eliminate me. You want to eliminate this source of truth. You want to stop everything that I'm doing in order to be able to advance your cause. And the bottom line is that's a heart problem. So it's still the same right now. That has not changed, friends, not in the least. So this lesson, our time together today in this one verse, and again, we got through one, but we need to understand why this is important, because it is absolutely 100% exactly what is going on right now. So my friends, my prayers are with you today as always, as I pray for you every single day. God bless you. Thank you for joining me for another edition of Making It Simple.